how are we all? If you're new here, my name's Sabrina and I am a fourth year medical student at the University of Chicago, which means that I am in the midst of my residency application season. I actually have my first interview for residency this week. And of course, because residency is at the top of my mind right now, I wanted to take an opportunity to chat about what I decided to apply into and provide some general considerations for those of you who will have to make this choice yourself sometime soon. So without further ado, I applied into general surgery. If you've been watching my channel for a while, that probably does not come as a surprise. I've been interested in surgery since I was a first year medical student, although that is not to say that I did not think about this decision very critically, as we all should, but I am really excited to be at this stage in my training and to be thinking so concretely about residency. So to kind of first talk through my thought process and why I chose surgery, coming into my third year of medical school, which is when we do our standard clinical rotations, I was considering surgery, I was considering OBGYN, and I was also considering emergency medicine. So I was definitely not at all like 100% decided, and I would say that was the case for most of my classmates as well. We made our decisions over the course of our third year. That being said, I did have a suspicion I would be interested in surgery and these more kind of procedural fields. Honestly, in large part because I really loved anatomy lab. I really loved being able to visualize these structures in the human body with my own eyes. I love the kind of tactile, physical exploration that anatomy lab afforded. I was someone who most days did not mind spending hours in lab because I felt the whole process of dissection to be pretty exciting. I was not someone who did a ton of shadowing in my first couple of years of med school. That was partially because I started med school during COVID, so some of those opportunities just weren't there. So I would say that the first time I spent a significant amount of time in the operating room was during my third year surgery rotation. And of course, the OR is very different from the anatomy lab. There's a real patient on the table, there are real stakes. And I found myself really drawn to the operating room environment, to the work of surgery, which I think is really crucial. Surgery is a really glamorized field, and it's also something that's really novel and exciting. A lot of medical students have never done or never seen something like this before. So I think it's really important to ask yourself if what you're drawn to is the excitement or if it's something deeper, because of course the excitement will fade. Something I found myself really drawn to was how meticulous and detail-oriented and concentrated the operating room environment was. It was really funny because it actually reminded me of painting and drawing, which is something I spent a lot of time doing as a child. I feel like both artists and surgeons emphasize practice. They strive for perfection. I remember having this moment in the OR, watching one of my attendings sew the end of this tiny little vein to this equally tiny little shunt. And something in that moment really reminded me of how I would hunch over my paintings as a child. Of course, those scenarios are really different, but I think it showed me that I would enjoy the actual work of surgery, that I would actually enjoy performing surgery rather than just the idea of surgery. And I bring up that parallel because I think it's really hard as a preclinical student, whether you're pre-med or in your first couple of years of med school, it's really hard to know what people mean when they say, oh, do you like working with your hands? Of course, concentration, attention to detail, perfectionism, all those things are not limited to just the field of surgery, but I do think that they are potentially suggestive of if you would be a good fit for the field. The other major thing that I really loved about the field of surgery was how immediate it was. I love that someone could walk into the hospital with a problem that could be solved by the end of their hospitalization. The problems in surgery are really actionable, and there's a really direct cause and effect. You can take a tumor out, you can fix a vascular injury. As someone who kind of errs on the more impatient side of things, I loved that. And I felt like those relationships that you build with your patients as a surgeon are incredibly gratifying for that reason. As you might know, I worked in health policy before I started med school. I do a lot of policy research now, and the slowness of policy work is something that can be really frustrating at times. Policy solutions take years and years to happen. I think one of the biggest things that held me back in terms of choosing surgery was whether or not I would have enough time for all the other things that I want to dedicate time to in my life. Whether that's my policy work or my family or informal little side projects I have like YouTube, all of those things are really important to me. And I was really encouraged to see mentors who did have families, who did have thriving research careers. I do acknowledge that I might have to be a little bit more intentional in trying to reach my goals, but I'm feeling excited about all of the possibilities. Of course, choosing a specialty is going to be very specific to you and your own goals, but I hope this was at least a little helpful. I think my biggest advice would be to keep an open mind. There are aspects of each specialty that I really liked and really surprised me. And of course, it's important to think about what the average day looks like, how you want to spend your time, what kind of workflow works for you. I personally didn't like the pace in clinic, but I loved the pace in the emergency department, for example. And finally, the decision will happen when it happens. I think sometimes we can get really in our heads and worried about whether we're on the right timeline, if we're making this decision early enough. Obviously, it helps to have an idea early on and to invest in those ideas as early as you can, whether that's finding potential mentors or picking up research projects. But as long as you are exploring in earnest, you are right where you need to be. Okay, that's all I have to say today. Thanks so much for watching as always. Wish me luck on my interview this week, and yeah, see you guys next time.